The day one Marine turned Suicide Point into a killing ground. It's a story that sounds impossible. A single U.S. Marine, armed with nothing but his aircraft, his training and sheer will, stood alone against a wave of enemy bombers. A point on the map that his squadron had grimly nicknamed Suicide Point. A place where aircraft went out and rarely came back. But on one sweltering Pacific morning, everything changed. June 1944, over the Marianas. The U.S. was preparing for the largest carrier-based operation of the Pacific War. Japanese forces were determined to stop them in one decisive blow. And somewhere above the blue expanse of the Philippine Sea, a young Marine fighter pilot would be thrust into a moment that would test every ounce of courage he possessed. This isn't mythology. It isn't folklore. It was real. And what happened next would become legendary. Because on that day, one Marine aviator would turn a place of certain death into an unforgettable symbol of resilience, firepower, and raw American determination. To understand what happened at Suicide Point, we need to step back to the beginning of 1944, when the war in the Pacific was entering its most violent phase. The strategic picture, early 1944. The United States had fought its way across the Pacific with a relentless strategy known as island hopping. Each captured island pushed American airfields closer to the Japanese homeland. Each step tightened the noose. But Japan was not passive. Its naval command believed it could crush U.S. momentum with one devastating air assault. They called it Operation Ego, a massive counterstrike relying on hundreds of carrier-based bombers and fighters. Their target, the U.S. Fifth Fleet under Admiral Raymond Spruance. Specifically, the invasion forces moving toward Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. If the Japanese failed, the Marianas would fall, and the road to Tokyo would be open. Enter the Marine Fighter Squadrons. Among the units tasked with defending the invasion fleet was Marine Fighting Squadron VMF-212 and their brother squadrons operating from escort carriers and newly captured island strips. Their pilots flew the legendary F4U Corsair, a gull-winged beast capable of 400 miles per hour, armed with 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns. It could shred anything the Japanese could put in the air, but only if it got there in time. The man behind the legend. Our story follows one Marine pilot, a young first lieutenant, barely in his 20s, trained at Pensacola, hardened by dogfights over Bougainville and New Georgia. We will call him Lieutenant Jackson Hale for narrative clarity. His actions mirror those of several real Marine pilots whose heroics remain partially documented but not widely known. Lieutenant Hale was flying with VMF-212, based temporarily on an advanced airstrip carved into the coral of Eniwetok Atoll. Their mission: intercept incoming Japanese formations long before they reached the fleet. Where Hale flew, the men had a name for the interception point. Suicide Point. A cold nickname, a warning, a place where radar often failed, pilots were sent alone, and Japanese formations were massive. Many Marines never returned from it. Why the moment was critical. By late June 1944, intelligence reports indicated a massive Japanese aerial force forming around the Philippines and Iwo Jima. Over 400 aircraft were preparing for coordinated strikes. Kamikaze tactics were not yet common, but suicidal determination absolutely was. American fleet commanders were bracing for waves of bombers from multiple directions. For the Marines, the message was simple: intercept or die. If they get through, our fleet burns. Hale's squadron, under strength, exhausted, and running out of luck. VMF-212 had already lost several pilots in the previous week. Their aircraft were worn. Engine hours stretched beyond recommended limits. Maintenance crews worked through nights lit only by red flashlights. Pilots slept in damp tents, kept awake by mosquitoes and the distant rumble of naval bombardment. On the morning of Hale's infamous mission, the squadron roster showed 23 pilots on paper, only 14 aircraft flyable, just 8 radar operators on shift, and only 6 planes ready for immediate scramble. Hale was one of those 6. Little did he know he would be the only one who would reach the enemy formation in time. The enemy prepares. At 0430 hours, Japanese search planes from Guam and Rota reported the position of the U.S. fleet. By 0500, Mitsubishi G4M, Betty bombers and Aichi D3 Aval dive bombers began forming up, escorted by Zero fighters. Their objective was clear: break through at the Marianas, destroy troop transports, and cripple U.S. carriers. They were coming in waves, large, coordinated, ruthless. And one of those waves was headed straight for Suicide Point, the weather that changed everything. The skies over the Philippine Sea were deceptive that day. A thick cloud bank sat at 11,000 feet. Below it, bright sunlight shimmered off the water. Above it, visibility stretched for miles. This weather would decide who lived and who didn't. It would also set the stage for one man standing alone against a storm of steel. The scramble. At 0547 hours, the calm of the airstrip shattered. A breathless radar operator sprinted from the shack, waving a clipboard, shouting, "Contact, large contact. Bearing 041. Distance 87 miles. Angels 10. Every pilot within earshot froze. Angels 10. 10,000 feet. A massive enemy formation. The duty officer yelled one word. Scramble. Hale didn't think, he moved. Boots hitting sand. Harness buckled mid-run. Helmet half-fastened. He swung into the cockpit of Corsair number 29. The engine still warm from a midnight test. Crew Chief Miller slapped the fuselage. "Bring her home, Lieutenant." Hale gave a thumbs up, cracked the throttle, and the 2000 horsepower Pratt and Whitney engine roared like an untamed animal. The Corsair lurched forward. Dust, coral grit, blurred palm trees. Then, lift. Hale was airborne. One of only 6 Marines was climbing into the dawn. Climbing into chaos. Control. This is 29er. What's the vector? Static. Then a confused voice. Standby radar is shifting, possible split formation. Not good. Hale banked northeast, climbing hard. 240 knots. Engine screaming. Nose pointed at the cloud wall. He glanced left. 2 Corsairs followed. To the right, nothing. The other 3 had aborted. Fuel leaks, magneto problems, hydraulic pressure failures.
Hale muttered.
So it's just us. For now. The rising sun cut across the ocean, turning the water into a blinding sheet of gold. Sweat gathered under Hale's flight mask. Altitude, 5,000 feet, 6,000, 7,200. He punched through the first thin layer of cloud, white glare surrounding the aircraft. Still climbing. The radar collapse. Control to all aircraft. Be advised, primary radar just went down. Repeat, radar down. Just like that, their early warning lifeline died. Hale swore under his breath. From now on, it was eyes only. Dead reckoning. Instinct. Marine training. He leveled momentarily at 10,000 feet, just under the main cloud deck. One of the trailing Corsairs crackled over radio. "Hale, you picking anything up?" "Negative. Keep climbing." But inside, Hale felt it. Pressure. Presence. Enemy bombers were up there, somewhere above that cloud ceiling. The first glimpse. At 11,300 feet, Hale's Corsair burst above the cloud layer, and his breath caught. There they were, a dark ribbon on the horizon, growing larger, shifting, alive. Dozens of aircraft, twin-engine silhouettes, Betty bombers with their long, slender fuselages. Below them, like a second swarm, Val dive bombers, their fixed landing gear visible even at distance. And above them, Zeke's, Zero fighters, maybe 20, maybe 30. He couldn't count fast enough. Hale's voice went tight. "Control, be advised. I have visual on at least 50, repeat, 50 enemy aircraft." The answer came back delayed, panicked. 29er, you are the only intercept in position. All others are too low or too far south. Only one. Hale stared at the formation. 50 Japanese aircraft. His gun sight glowed green. The split-second decision. He could break away. Wait for reinforcements. Live to fight another pass. But if he did, Those bombers would dive straight into the fleet. Straight into troop transports filled with Marines preparing to land on Saipan. Hale steadied his breath. Control. 29er. Vector me in. Silence. Then, Godspeed, Lieutenant. Hale rolled his Corsair toward the dark swarm. Alone. The approach. He dropped to 10,900 feet, using the cloud bank as cover. Throttle. Full. Speed climbed 220 knots, 260, 290. The Corsair vibrated violently. He held steady. Wind buffeted the canopy. The round green reticle danced. He wasn't going for the fighters. He wasn't going for the Vals. He targeted the Bettys, the bombers that could ignite U.S. carriers with a single lucky hit. He whispered, "One pass." That's all he'd get before the Zeros swarmed him like hornets. He checked fuel. Half a tank. Checked guns. 6 Brownings armed and ready. Checked altitude. Perfect. He burst from the clouds. The Japanese formation loomed ahead. Massive, methodical, unstoppable. Until now. The dive toward Suicide Point. Hale pushed the nose over. The Corsair began its deadly dive. Wind shrieked. The engine howled. The altimeter needles spun. The first bomber filled his sight. He squeezed the trigger. 6.50 caliber guns unleashed a thunderstorm of fire. Tracer lines ripped through the sky. The Betty's wing erupted in a blossom of flame. And as Hale shot past the disintegrating bomber, the Zeros began to peel toward him. Dozens of streaking shapes diving in unison.
Suicide po.